Welcome back to Unscripted Pivots, where we embrace the WTF moments, women that flourish. Today, we're taking things to the next level with a guest who has mastered the art of living on life on her own terms. Lori Altermann is the queen of IDGAF. I don't give up. Well, you get it. We're going to call it Fagana, okay? Attitude, IDGAF. And yes, I'm wearing her t-shirt. So on YouTube, you guys are going to see this. I love it, love it, love it. So for this episode, we'll be swapping out the famous F word, and we'll be using some other ones we think, because I don't know, why the hell not? Lori has navigated her fair share of life pivots, both in her career and her personal life. And she's here to share how she's done it with humor and a little bit of grace. But that's not all. Lori is also taking TikTok by storm, which is how I found her. She's got over 130,000 fans in such a short period. They just can't get enough of her and her hilarious laugh out loud moments. Whether she's dishing out life wisdom or cracking us up with her fearless takes, her TikTok adventures are pure gold. She also is the host of a recently launched podcast called The Lori Altermann Show, and she's got her eyes on taking the stage to share her unapologetic truth. So if you're ready to hear how to handle life's unscripted pivots without giving too many faganas, let's dive in with the one and only Lori Altermann. Welcome to Unscripted Pivots.
Thank you for having me.
Oh my gosh, I just adore you. Just so everybody knows, I don't really know Lori. We had one brief conversation before this. About 2 weeks ago, maybe I was scrolling on TikTok right before I was going to bed. I'm just, coming across, and I see her, and she's absolutely hilarious. And it was just so well timed because she was announcing the launch of her podcast. And so, of course, that piqued my interest, being a host myself. And I immediately went to follow that. And then, with that, I got this great T-shirt. I got this great mug because I was one of the, new followers, of which she's got tremendous amounts already. And I'm so thrilled. So go ahead, tell the listeners out there a little bit about you and how you came to be the IDGAF woman.
So, a lot of people, I'm going to be 56 in a few weeks. A lot of people say that it took them all their lives not to sweat the small stuff. I am lucky that I never did. However, in my 50s, I care even less. And I noticed when I started on social media about a year ago that what was resonating with women, but men too, and even kids, was this feeling and this power of, why do we care? So it's all going to be over real soon.
Yeah, truth.
None of it matters. No one is worried about you, not even your mama, and she ain't even that worried about you. So I've always had that really free feeling of, there's only a few things that matter in life. And in my 50s, I don't even know if I can count them on one hand. And the followers and the fans have loved this permission to IDGAF. And it's just become a movement. If the world cared more about the things they should and less about everything else, I think it would be much nicer.
Yeah, I wholeheartedly agree with that. I mean, even when I was rolling out my brand, WTF, and people were like, are you talking about what the, Fangola? And I said, yeah, because we're talking about pivots, man, and that's where it starts. But when you're going through those experiences, I want you to think that about the fact that you are a woman that flourishes. So the next time you go, what the fuck? This is what I want you to think about. So it's just that transformation, and it's a lighthearted approach to just what life really is. Now, by way of background, since I spoke to you once before, I know that you always had this comedic energy within you, and that was a design for living that you had early on. So tell the listeners about what, the younger version of Lori and what you had planned to set out to do, and that, you're doing it now. So let's chat about that, because it really is fascinating.
So a young me, well, I grew up in Atlanta, Georgia. I'm in Philadelphia now. And in Atlanta, I grew up in the 70s, 80s. And my world was TV. I am not sportsy, athletic. I was an undiagnosed, because they didn't then, ADD learning, they call it differences now. So my escape was in entertainment, watching TV. And I really simply just wanted to be on a sitcom or Saturday Night Live. Because really, if you think about it, if you're of our age, that's all that was on. There was 3 stations. and you stood in front of the TV so that you didn't
No remote.
know, and that you would move the little rabbit ear so that it didn't lose its strength. And so I just found in Saturday Night Live, especially, something that resonated. The skits, the impersonations, the different, it was very revolutionary. As a matter of fact, I think it's this month or maybe the beginning of October, there's a fabulous, I think, movie coming out about the history of SNL. And it just did me in. And I knew I had to be on it. So the track was and still is to do stand up and to do improv.
Mhm.
And so after college, I did both. And I never planned on getting married. I wasn't a girl that dreamed of her wedding. I'm not a kid person. And I thought I'll move to New York and just do it. Well, life has a funny way of laughing at you. And I met this fabulous guy when I was about 26. I lived in Atlanta, he lived in Florida, but he was moving to New York to do training for his job. And I thought, well, what a great reason. I'll visit him. This was pre 9/11, jump on a plane. He used to walk me on. Even then, I thought it was weird, not safe, but, and I would go every weekend, and he worked nights. So I had the whole day alone in New York, and New York was very special then, very different vibe. And I met a lot of people. I did stand up at night. I met people through that, and I met a group of women that worked for Saturday Night Live, and it was very sobering. They were unhappy. It still is, but it was definitely before Me Too, quite the boys' club. There was no HR. There was no internet, social media. So women were not respected. Their work wasn't respected. And it was long hours, as we know. It's a live show.
Sure.
It starts at midnight on Saturdays. They write all week. And the grind scared me. They scared me. Same time, I was falling in love. And a real danger in making money. And I was doing a lot of entertainment. I was a talk show host, a DJ. I was doing stand up. I was doing dinner theater. But to make ends meet, I also was working. I don't know how I had the energy. I look back. I was also working in TV and radio ad sales and doing really well and making a lot of money. Well, that can be dangerous because you start to get comfortable with it. You know what? I don't even need to be on Saturday Night Live, and maybe I'll just take this money and I don't have to worry about going to the late night clubs and the smoke and the club owners. And I was falling in love. So I gave up that dream. I wasn't upset about it at all. I stayed in sales. I married my husband. I had 2 girls, the first one in 2000. And I stayed home. I was privileged and lucky enough to stay home with both of them, which was good because I had no experience with kids. And my kids, like many, had a lot of health issues and a lot of mental, social. It's no joke, no joke. And I was glad I was there for them. However, a lot of things happened over those years I didn't deal with. I got cancer. My mom died. My kid was almost killed, yada, yada. And when I empty nested, when the second daughter left for college, I had a nervous breakdown. I had never dealt with the trauma. I dealt with it with humor, and I was a shell of myself. The girl I was before I became a mom is really the girl I am now. So the people who know me later in life think I've changed now that I've been in entertainment, on social media. This is really who I was. The mom thing was not the real thing. The love was there. I was faking that. So I had this breakdown where I said and knew I needed to get real help to deal with traumas I hadn't dealt with, to face a lot of stuff that was really upsetting. We all have it. And on the other end of that, and I went to a real trauma therapist. It's a real thing. And it's hard.
It absolutely is.
Oh, it's not like garden variety therapy. It is work. But on the other end of it, I was faced with, what do I do with the rest of my life? And people had said, do a podcast, do stand up again, do radio, and none of that resonated. And I was a huge consumer of TikTok. And hand to Bible, one Sunday night, I was sleeping. I woke up out of a dead sleep. And I said, I'm going to do TikTok. I didn't know. Even it was like words coming out of someone's mouth. My husband looked at me like I had two heads,
Yeah.
and I said, "I'm going to do it." I had never used a laptop, a computer. I had never filmed on my phone. Technology is very scary to me. I had to hire college students to even show me how to film. So that's where I went from Saturday Night Live back to that. The idea was never to be back in entertainment. It was to dip my toe, but I was lucky and blessed enough that it really took off. And because I'm 55 and I don't give an F, I
Yeah.
think there's an authenticity that resonates with a viewer that I ain't gotta do this. I don't have to do this. I want to do this. I am too ADD to lie. So what you get is what you see, what you get. And I think there was a need for someone my age to put that personality in that. I had cancer. I didn't have reconstruction. That was a whole other thing that was a little different. And it started out to be just my obsession with skincare, makeup, and my experience with cancer. And I had to have a hysterectomy and I went into menopause. But then my humor just came out and it all has blended nicely. I have a lovely, beautiful, special, engaged following on TikTok and now on Instagram and now on YouTube. And it was an unexpected chapter in my life to just say, you never know. All the times I felt like giving up, all the times during this that a lot of friends and family thought it was crazy. You
Mm.
gotta just know you got one shot and go
This
for
is
it.
such an important message. I admire your willingness to put yourself out there, and I want others to understand that this is not an easy path necessarily, but it's an authentic one. And when you're driven by returning to who you actually are at your core, that will propel you in places as long as you don't really give a fagana about what other people are saying. And you really have to park that because your people, they will find you. And Lori, your people have found you, and that group is growing like by the hour. I'm not even going to say by the day. It continues to
Thank
grow
you.
because you bring so much energy and love for what it is that you're doing, right? And it's so important for us. I mean, there's certain things about, yeah, let's be kind out there, people. I get that, but be authentic and be real,
So many
And
people are so
so,
lonely that I found out. And
yeah,
so many women don't feel like they have the permission to think the things that I say out loud, whether it's I love my kids, but I'm happy they're gone, or I'm in love with my husband, but every time he breathes, I want to strangle him. Like certain things that
yeah.
you growing up, if you're of our age, you weren't allowed to really think or feel. And so I'm giving permission. You can't help how you feel. You can help how you act.
Yes, 100%. Well, there was so much that I want to unpack in your life story. Several things resonated with me. One of the things that's grabbing me is that you said that, be careful of when you make money, like what that's going to do. And that resonated deeply with me because I was, stay-at-home mom. Well, first I was a lawyer, then a stay-at-home mom. Then I wanted to get back out because I was like, okay, look, I love the kids, but I don't love this lifestyle indoors. And I ended up doing commercial title insurance. And I thought, well, I'll just do that for a minute because that was going to be the first opportunity to get the hell out of the door. But within a very short time, I was making a lot of money at it. And be careful like of that because it's like the golden handcuffs because the inability to not look back and look at your real dream of what it is that you want to do, that starts to exist. Right. So you stay in something that maybe isn't really meant for you because it just makes sense dollar wise. And there's nothing really wrong with that. We have to earn. I mean, what
Yeah, I
you did,
had
you
to
raised
pay
two
the
kids. I
bills,
mean, yeah,
but
there's bills and there's colleges and there's all sorts of things. But at the end of the day, these golden handcuffs are real and you just start and you have to keep chasing that. And so that really resonated with me when you said that. One of the things, I mean, there's so many things about your TikTok, and we'll have all the links in the show notes. But I mean, you were just freaking hilarious. You talk
thank
about
you.
what okay, Lori and I share the F word in common, like within our branding, right? But I want to talk to you about some M stuff. Okay, we got to bring up menopause because there's menopause. I want to talk to her about
Well,
men. I want to talk to you about mentorship because of you, being in the male dominated industry, even still to this day, how you're giving back. So let's talk about some M words. Let's talk about menopause because you are so damn funny when it comes to that. And women are just eating it up. Men too.
mhm.
Men too. So let's talk a little bit about like, what is like the most you think laughable moment or symptom that you always zero in on when it comes to experiencing menopause?
You know, I did something just yesterday and about the symptoms, and I would say the craziest symptom I have, and people were commenting back they have it, is an itchy back. Wait,
Oh, yeah.
don't know why, don't know how. As a matter of fact, it's itching right now just talking about it. And it's the same area, and it's absolutely a menopausal symptom. And I'll tell you a
Yeah.
funny story, another one.
Yeah.
My husband's an eye doctor, and I say this because of this story. So for a while, my eyesight was getting worse, and I was developing cataracts, which you can develop um, from taking. I have a chemo drug. I take tamoxifen. So it wasn't a shock. And my husband's a cataract specialist, and he said, but they're
Mm.
not bad enough to do anything. But the weeks would go on, and I just, more and more I couldn't see. One night, I couldn't see my hand in front of my face, not my phone, and I was scared. I
Uh,
thought I was stroking out. So my husband was
yeah.
really
Oh
scared.
God.
He rushed me
Yeah.
to his office. He checked everything in his head and mine without saying it. You have a brain tumor. He saw nothing was wrong. And then he did the old shoemaker's wife. You're fine. You know,
Mm.
that's
Yeah.
the wife of a doctor. You're fine. There's nothing. And I said, well, yet I'm not, because
I
yet
need a
I
second
can't.
opinion.
So to shut me up, he said, I don't know. Your eyes are kind of dry. Just put some lubricating drops in. I put them in. I've never seen better. So from menopause, one of the symptoms is, well, we know dry everything, dry eye.
Let's try everything, right?
And his eye doctor. So yeah, I and I'm
And
almost
that
towards
was the
having it
answer.
because it
Okay.
feels so soothing to put it in. I put it in 4 times a day. I see great.
Okay. Well, I love to put drops in my eyes too. I use Lumify or Lumify or I don't know what the hell it's called. That little tiny bottle. It looks like Visine,
It's
but I don't know. It's a
amazing.
better brand. Yeah. Is yours a prescription or
No,
drop? It's just
no.
yeah.
Sure.
Yeah, we tend to have to coat everything after menopause. I'm trying to think if I got an itchy back. That's where spouses become helpful being in your life, right? Because they can help you with those itches. But no,
Sure.
my ears got itchy and I didn't know why that was the inside of my ear. Look at her. She's making like, oh my God, I get it.
I have to put
Yeah.
eardrops in my ears. It's called I don't know the name of it. I
Yeah.
get it from Amazon, but I have to oil my ears now.
Yeah.
Mhm.
There's lots of changes, but there's lots of changes all through life. But when we can poke fun at it and embrace it for what it is, because what's the alternative, Lori? I mean, we could be 6 feet under, And so and you're rocking it. And when I see women, turning that corner, becoming the empty nester, which I like to call the bird launcher, right? Right. You've
Mhm.
heard that term probably. I mean, I
Mhm.
didn't make it up. And I have 4. I mean, I had to
Mhm.
like, launch 4. And so I get what that looks like. And then you're like, well, what am I going to be? I worked all through I mean, when the 4th one became 1 is when I started going back to work, mostly because I was becoming insane staying home. That's what, yeah, against everybody's wishes, including their dads. I went back to work
Wow, that's a
and I
harsh
wanted,
case that you didn't want to stay home and your husband was. How did you deal with it?
he wanted me at home. That just looked like I just felt I was going crazy, to be honest with you. When I started to look at him and resent the fact that he was, he also was an attorney and he was leaving every day in his suit and everything seemed civil as, somebody's puking on me and I've got another belly because I'm pregnant again. And I loved being pregnant and I loved the kids, but the insanity of that existence. And then my grandmother moved in until she died. And so it was her and her oxygen tank and this and that. And she was my best friend, so no complaints there. In fact, I went into a spiral when she did pass because she was just like the core of my life in my home. And I thought, oh, I'm not staying here by myself. And when she died, I was like, I got to get a job. And somebody offered me a job in insurance. And then, that's what I did for 25
How
years.
long
And I
until
got,
your husband got on board?
when he saw me making 7 figures, which only took about a year. Yeah. And then I was paying 7 figures in taxes. Then I understood what white collar crime could look like. So I went from I thought, wait, this is bullshit. Okay, this is bullshit. But I was fortunate enough to have really good relationships in New York and just worked my ass off. And so, he knew the value of that because we were funding their colleges when they were 2, 3 years old and they never had to pay for colleges. And they all went to private colleges and they all got their first car and they got a lot of things because of it, not just material, a head start. We
Yeah.
were saving for a head start. But And I was looking just to, get back out there and just to do something. And it was quite the career being in Manhattan and all the, fancy stuff that comes with doing commercial real estate sales. It was cool. It was cool for what it was, but it was a mad ass juggle. And I had, live-in nanny. I mean, there's no way you can just have part-time help when you're trying to navigate that. Um, but what I was going to say is that, like, here I am. I just celebrated my 60th birthday. I'm like, what the fun? Like, what? How did that happen? And that number, if you would have asked me 10 years ago if that would have bothered me, I would have said, yeah, that's real. Because everybody's saying, like, 30 is the new 20 and 40 is the new 30. But I think they stopped counting back decades by the time you get 60. I have yet to hear somebody say, well, 60 is the new 50. I don't think so. But the beauty of it is that so much has changed in this year alone with my career that I feel like I'm almost in state of infancy. I'm like, what the hell is going on? Approaching things that I know how to do, but focusing them on full time. And who I'm meeting in 2024 is Danielle. And I'm returning in a way that is just so big and beautiful. And today, I don't have the fear I would have had 20 years ago. That's a beautiful thing about your movement with the, I don't give a fagana, because it's it is what you said, Lori. It's permission, okay, to just be you, not at the expense of other people, but despite their opinions, because who the hell cares? If you are looking in a mirror and you like what you see, both inside and out, well, that's all we need. That's the litmus test. That's it. And that's what I keep trying to tell women. And, I mean, look, I celebrate us changing ourselves in ways we want to. We go on the diets or we have Botox and we do things. We do all the things. And there's nothing inauthentic about that. But when it comes to, being a brand, putting out your message, following your calling, takes a lot of courage. It takes a lot of guts. But the liberation that is experienced when you do that, I mean, I can just see on your TikToks how you are glowing because you are being who you are. And so the whole SNL thing and the early years that you were actually tracked for that movement didn't surprise me at all once we started chatting, because I thought, no, that's who she is at her core. That's authentically her. And you're so not only just relatable, but it's like you invite online, virtually, people into your space. It's almost like one of those things where, oh, I know her. Like they think they know you. Okay. And that, Lori, is a real gift. That's a real gift. I saw one of your TikToks. I was what my in fact, I don't own Depends yet. Okay, I don't. I may be 60. But I literally thought, oh, she's gonna make me laugh so much and I can't get up from this podcast. I might want to buy a pair because I'm gonna pee in my pants, because I watch her TikToks and I was dying. There was a TikTok, one of your posts, where you're, I guess, on a subway and you're looking to see, like, if you're famous, right? You're saying, oh, and you're like kind of skirting around, like you have to kind of be private so you don't be like recognized. And then like nobody's really recognizing you, and your whole shtick there is like, hey, do you know who Lori Altermann is? And I mean, Lori, you're just brilliant.
Thank you.
You're brilliant in your ideas, in your delivery. I mean, that takes a lot of work. So where the hell did you get the confidence, okay, to do this at a young age? I mean, you're bringing it out now where, women start to go, I don't give a shit. I don't give a F. That's what we don't give here. But where did you get that confidence even early on when it was stacked against you with being a male-dominated field? Like, who told you that you could do this? This is what I want to know. Is it your mom? Is it your dad? Is it your friends? Like, did you come out of the womb that way, cracking jokes? I mean, tell me.
I've never thought about it and I've never been asked, but my first reaction is that to compensate, I think, in school for not knowing the answer to anything.
Okay.
And I think you are born funny. You can't teach it. It was a very easy go-to. If I can make everybody laugh, then it's not embarrassing that I can't tell you but 1 and 1 is. And I very supportive parents, just, at some point, and they valued, especially my dad, comedy and introduced me to a lot of things that I found funny and shows. But I remember saying to my dad when I was dating my husband, I was with him, who's a doctor, and his friends that were also doctors, lawyers. They were in finance in New York. And I started to second guess, what am I doing? This is the dumbest thing. And it isn't valuable. And I felt less than around all of them. I never even told my husband this. And I remember my dad saying, what you want to do may be more valuable. Making someone laugh, making them forget their troubles, having them escape for X amount. He said, there's nothing that feels better. So they were supportive, and it just, it always, the humor always came naturally. It's turning it off that I have trouble with.
Okay. You're definitely one of those. I don't know. I've heard somebody describe it as like church giggles. Like when you're not supposed to laugh in a situation, because I'm the worst. Like, do not say anything to me where we should not be
I've
laughing,
been in
and then like
trouble
tell
at
me,
many religious services,
yeah,
many.
no.
Asked to leave, asked to not come back. But I play fair. If you did it at mine, I wouldn't care.
Yeah, okay. That is fair. Let me ask you a little bit more of a deeper question because, using humor as a tool, right, to navigate life and to kind of offset any kind of like inferior, weaknesses that we think we may have, something about us being inferior, right? Has that ever like worked against you? Did you ever find a period of time where you were hiding behind that, but you weren't able to then address a problem, right? Because we're looking for solutions. We're always looking for probably a way out. But as you described earlier, there's only a way through. We don't get around shit. You don't heal from that. You got to go through stuff. So was there at any point in time where that was working against you and you really had to kind of switch it off and not get heavy and dark and serious so much as in touch? In touch. Tell
So
me about
yes,
that.
that's what happened during parenting, is that when tragedy struck or really hard times, rather than be so my parents, and that's not true, they don't all do their best, but mine did. But they were young.
Best-
They got married at 21. They'd never dated anybody. They didn't have the tools. It was the
Mm,
60s, and they weren't hippies. They were two just young, uh, very inexperienced, not worldly people. And so when something bad would happen as a child, they would hunker down and they would panic and they would freeze, and there was no funny. There was no laughter. It was something bad is happening and we're shutting everything down. And so it was very upsetting as a kid. And they did have a lot of tragedy and a lot of bad things, like most families do.
mm,
But it wasn't until I got into the real world that I saw, you never do till you see other families, the way they live, that people actually still function. They still go to dinner, they laugh, they make fun of each other.
mm-hmm.
And it wasn't until I became a mom that I decided, because we all do this, I'm going to be different. I'm going to be better than them. And when tragedy calls me, I'm going to have what my therapist lady
Yeah.
named
So-
the Lori Show. The irony is I really have
and she
one,
has the Lori show now.
but my child was in the hospital a lot, and I would
Yeah.
just giggle and
Mm,
laugh and make where my parents would just sit in a hospital room like this, I'm making the doctors laugh, my kid laugh, and I am working 24/7 with a pre-show and a dinner show and an after show. And rather than deal with, wow, this is pretty serious, or this
mm-hmm.
is life or death, or I just said, if I can make everybody laugh. And it just never stopped until I hit a wall, because I'd never dealt with any of it except for by being funny.
Mm.
So it was my detriment, had a real nervous breakdown. And in trauma therapy, the therapist said, which was so freeing, but I got pushback with this, and I'll talk about this. If you don't feel like being funny, don't. Like, I didn't know it was
Yeah.
a choice
Yeah.
to not,
Okay.
if you don't feel like talking, you don't have to. So I had to practice not being fun. Like, I don't really feel like it. And don't you
Yeah.
know, when I first did it for the first few months, friends and family would say, "What's wrong with you? Something wrong?" And I
Mm.
would say, "I'm feeling funny." And I would get called to the carpet. Well, where's Lori tonight? So it was a hard adjustment. Now I don't even think about it, except for to think about, I don't feel like being funny. I mean, there's
Yeah.
times where now, because I do this for a living, I have to. But before, when I was a parent, I was so scared for my kids when they were in certain situations that I mean, I got kicked out of, I had a kid, and this is no secret. She was in rehab for a while for a very serious eating disorder. And I got kicked out of the place because I'm in the group family therapy. And I'm like, anybody want an apple? I just
Oh,
was making
Lori.
some people laugh. And the doctors were like, I wonder why your kid can't eat. So, but to
Okay.
me,
Yeah.
my parents would have been like this there.
Okay.
And I'm like, why can't we still have fun? And
So
there's a
there's a real polarity, though, okay, in the situation between you and your parents. It's like, where's the middle ground? But it's a good point. And you came, and it is authentically you. But like you said, there was a time and a place for it when you were going to approach like healing, and when your body started to shut down and your mind followed, probably, or maybe it
couldn't
was the
handle my
reverse.
feelings.
Yeah.
That's what it boiled down to. I
Yeah.
thought if I feel the fear
Yeah.
or the sadness, I will die. And
Yeah.
it sounds ridiculous to say it out loud, but this therapist we would do these exercises where, okay, so you die. You really think your feelings are going to kill you, but it felt like they would.
Yeah. Yeah. No, that's a real thing. It's a real, I mean, most people recognize that today. If they haven't experienced some version of it, big or small, they know somebody who has. That's the truth. People are talking about it more. There's less hiding around. It's like normalizing recovery and supporting mental health. I mean, that's one of the most beautiful things that's happened in the last several years is that I've seen that get normalized. For God's
Well,
sakes,
it's
we're
not
not
weak,
having these conversations. Yeah. Yeah. No, it's not weak.
but I
And
thought it
probably the
was.
strong because again, that's where we can go in our head. That's where we can go in our head, and it's not. And I'm always saying I'm a proponent of community on this podcast. It's all about community because every time we try to do something alone, it's you got to ask for help. And not only sometimes it's just a share. Okay, that'll bring me to another M. Let's talk mentorship, right? So here you are, like kicking ass and taking names as a comedian, and just like growing in record pace. It's just crazy good. I mean, are you finding any women coming to you and going, how the hell are you doing this? How do I do this? Where did you do this? Right? Because you're almost going to be representative of, the success and the joy that can come from following that calling. So what does that look like, Lori?
So my dad also taught me very early on to ask for help. So in anything I've ever done, I've always found a coach, whether it
Good.
was for parenting or for employment. And when I started on TikTok, I'm like, I'm going to find a bunch of women on TikTok and bother them. And I reached out to a lot. Well, 2 reached back, and they're huge. And the rest didn't, which
Okay.
is totally fine. I mean, I now get inundated
You
with.
reached out for them. What do you mean you reached out?
It
For
was
what?
almost out of naivety. Now that I
Okay.
look at the one I reached out to, her name's Erica Taylor, and she is a really big influencer in the beauty world. And
Okay.
because you would love her. She's so authentic. I just figured I'll just DM her. I didn't realize that she was on the box of L'Oreal products. Like, she's big.
Yeah.
So I reached out to her, like, how come when I'm editing in TikTok, this one little, I mean, it just answered. And we developed this friendship. And
Okay.
so she became definitely somewhat of a mentor. Then I did
Yeah.
it to this other one, wrote me back, and I looked at what they were doing and I asked the right questions. I've hired the right people. It's a whole business to
Yes.
monetize, to learn how to negotiate with brands, to learn all of the business
Yeah.
end of
I
social
know.
media. But I
Mm,
hire people. I have some really good people that I hired. So they mentored me in that. And then in terms of being a creator, I got mentorship from these women. And now I crack up that people are reaching out to me. But like I was on a FaceTime the other day with a girl telling her what I do. And sure
yeah.
enough, she posted and it was great. And it was great to pay it forward.
That's fantastic. I love to hear that. Let's talk about your podcast now because that's relatively new, and I've listened to a few episodes. Right? I mean, you just came out with this in the last 2 months, maybe?
So the
Not even, but
podcast, as
yeah.
it is now,
Okay.
yes. But very, what I really wanted to do, because I don't want to be on Saturday Night Live unless I'm like a background, but I wouldn't have the energy or what I would love to,
That's so untrue. SNL, if you're listening,
if you're
she
listening.
does. Invite
But
her. Go ahead. Do that.
so what I really want to do is have a talk show.
Mhm.
So David Letterman meets old Howard Stern,
Mhm.
meets Conan, little bit of Johnny Carson. And so very early on, I would sit in my glam room and have a guest on, and we would do lives on TikTok. And then I was fortunate enough to become friends with this couple that were just fans. And they're like, you need a real show. And then so we moved it to my family room, and they said, you need crew. I have a whole production team now and a production studio in the house. So
That's
this
great.
talk show became a podcast. And what I love is I do it normally with three guys. And my favorite thing about a show or a talk show is the weird mix of ingredients. So that's what I do love about the Howard Stern show. If you look at the players, none of them have anything in common. It is
It's so true.
it's the best. It's the best kind of dinner
My
party.
husband's the biggest fan of Howard Stern, the biggest. But yeah.
So the best kind
So
of dinner parties are when you have unusual guests. If you have everybody who's 55 and white and me and lives in Philadelphia, boring. So I like to mix unlikely guests. So I have on there my sidekick is a former Princeton basketball player, waspy white guy, 10 feet tall,
mhm.
who has a hedge fund. Then I have my two producers who are 35 and 32. One is a creative, the other one's like a science. We make no sense. And then we put in guests that also, I'll have rappers on, I'll have my car wash guy on. So the podcast is my happy place, hanging out with cool people, talking about stuff kind of Seinfeldy that you never thought, like, wow, like very Larry David. Never
Yeah, oh, I
thought
love
about
it. Yeah.
that take on it. But so that's what the podcast is now. I just started repurposing it on YouTube, but it really is my
So this is
baby.
done live though, right? I mean,
Well,
when does it come out?
I happen to do it live because I might as well. It's a great thing for TikTok. But
Mhm.
it only goes live to TikTok, but then it's put up in perpetuity in its entirety on YouTube. And then I just started to put little drips and drabs on TikTok. But that's my
Okay.
baby.
So when I look at your TikTok profile, I see live event. And so I've yet to watch one that way. I've seen it on YouTube. So you are just recording it live and streaming it on TikTok. And are there any kind of I don't know, tech issues when you're doing that through TikTok, or does that go seamlessly, or what's going on?
For the most part, it goes seamlessly.
Yeah.
I mean, at first there's always some little technical, but then what's good about it is, if there's an issue or a glitch on TikTok, and it does happen, it's fine. But then afterward, I can or my production people will clean it up. And I don't plan my podcasts. I don't meet the people before. I don't talk to them. It's very different. It's very raw. And it's
It's raw and
really,
real.
it's my
Yeah.
happy place.
Yeah. And how many days a week does that come out?
Just
Do you do
once.
that
I do it
just
usually
one?
Wednesday afternoons. But we
Okay.
also are going to start going like man on the street. We're going to do like remotes from maybe a Eagles pregame, tailgate. I may go outside of a DMV and talk to people because that's also fun to me, man on the street.
That's the best. I could just see you thriving in that space. Absolutely. Yes. Oh, just do it. Just are you an Eagles fan?
Yes. Yes.
Okay, because that's the other thing. You mentioned Howard Stern. My husband John is diehard Howard Stern and Eagles as
Oh,
well. Because we're
really?
from the East Coast, and even though we're from Jersey, it's a long story. But he's an Eagles fan.
But he
And
loves
there's
Eagles.
a bar that's in Orange County where we live that does all the Eagle games. Like the Eagles fans rent the bar for the
Oh,
games that are
wow.
played because they can't otherwise really watch that so easily like
Yeah.
on TV.
Yeah.
And they are dressed head to toe in the gear. They treat every game like it's the freaking Super Bowl. There's the team dances. There's like, the master with the flag, and they have games. I mean,
Wow.
like every game is treated that way. It's like next level, and it's like a couple of miles from the house. So,
That is shocking.
so Yeah, yeah, go Eagles for sure. Go Birds,
Go
as they would
Birds.
say. Yeah. So I know that you have family here. You have a daughter in California, and you said you just love LA and just so tell us a little about that. When are you going to come out here next? What's going on?
So I've had a love affair with New York and LA my whole life. I think it's because I was a girl that grew up in Atlanta, which was not exciting. And entertainment to me was New York because of Saturday Night Live and Broadway,
Mhm.
and LA for obvious reasons. And so it's always been very romantic to me. And this is a funny story. This is a really funny story. So when my kids were 13 and 10, they had never been to LA. And so they said, we want to go to LA to meet Justin Bieber. Okay, that's not
Mm.
how it works. But we'll go to LA, but you're not meeting Justin Bieber. So we go to a hotel.
Oh God.
Just so
Okay.
happens the Biebs was living there.
No.
And this
Stop.
was when the Biebs wasn't well liked. He had just been roasted and toasted
Okay.
on Comedy Central. He had just egged one of his neighbor's houses in Calabasas, and he was a sad Justin Bieber. He was in and
Okay.
out of a relationship with Selena. And so we are at the pool, just us, and he
Mm.
walks right up to us. And we
Are you
spent
kidding?
the whole week. We held his dog. We sat with the bodyguards. They took
You can't make this up.
not even, this is the beginning of it. They take my kids to his car. My kids do a soul cycle. He's next to them. We see him serenading Selena in the bar. We see him. He was going on tour. We see him in the gym practicing dancing. Then they say, we want to meet the Kardashians. So, I'm giving away the punchline. Like, well, that is this was
That's a tall
say
order.
next day they're there, and now it's the Kardashians.
Yeah.
And so my kids were messed up, to say the least. They thought this is what happens when you go to LA. And so we went constantly after that, and we would always see
Wait. Did you see the Kardashians? Did Justin knows the Kardashians, I'm sure. So you got
they're all
to
hanging
meet them
out
too.
at the pool.
What hotel were you at?
It
Like Four
was
Seasons? Where
called
were
the
you?
Mayborn. Now it's called the Montage. Now it's called the Mayborn.
Oh, sure. The Montage. Yeah, we have that version here in by Laguna Beach.
You
Yeah.
sure do. It's
Yeah.
beautiful.
Yeah, it's beautiful. It's absolutely gorgeous.
Beautiful.
That's hilarious. And then yeah, that spoiled them for what
Sure.
reality
So then
really is.
my
But
older daughter
yeah. Mhm.
went to Emerson College in Boston, and they have a campus in LA in West Hollywood. The top of the school, you look at the Hollywood sign. So she got into the program her senior year and has been there ever since. And we visit a lot. We're going to be there for a week in Thanksgiving. We may be coming to Orange County too.
Oh my gosh, you gotta tell me. I'd love to
Yeah.
see you. 'Cause
So
I'm about
I
45
love LA.
minutes.
I love it.
Yeah, it is. It has such great energy, as do you. And you know what? I'm not blowing smoke up your butt when I say I could see you with your own star on that Hollywood. Danielle can't talk. Hollywood. That little track of names with the little stars and stuff, and we'll
Oh
see
my
Lori
gosh.
Altermann on there. Hey, listen, the story that you just told is a testament to not just your luck, but that like it's coming to you. The universe is supporting this journey, right? And I can't think of anything more beautiful than that. I got some like wacky question I want to ask you. Okay.
Whack away.
You yeah. This is out of the blue. I don't even know why the hell I thought about this before we went on because I've never asked it of anybody. It's random. Okay. So you're dead. Now, obviously, we want you alive for a very long time,
Mhm.
but you're dead, right? And you get up the gates and, St. Peter's going to let you in, despite all your swearing with the F word, right?
Yeah,
But
for many
you're getting
reasons.
in.
Well, I'll just
You,
go
you,
along
you,
with it.
you help people laugh your whole life and he sees the joy you brought, right? So my question to you, Lori, is who's the first person that you're hoping to see and what do you want to say to them?
Oh, it'd be
So
my
it's
mom.
obviously somebody who passed.
Be my
Okay,
mom.
it's your mom.
Yeah.
Okay. Not
Oh,
everybody would answer that. That wouldn't be my answer. So it would
fair
be your
enough.
mom.
Fair
Yeah,
enough.
not everybody would answer that way.
You're right.
Yeah.
Oh, you're totally right. And I would say, where are we going to eat? Like, is he one place now?
How long has she been gone?
She died when she was 62. And
Too
how long
early.
has it been? About 13 years?
Yeah. Yeah, what health issues or?
So my mother at 32 got breast cancer.
Mhm.
And years later, she took the genetic tests and she had the BRCA1.
Mhm.
And I got the same testing and didn't have it, but I still got
Okay.
cancer because that doesn't mean you're not going to get it. But what we didn't know is that when you have BRCA1, when you have the genetic predisposition for breast cancer, it's the same with all cancers. So pancreatic's high up there,
Mhm.
pancreatic 61, if you know anything about pancreatic.
Yeah, that's
Goodbye, thanks for
aggressive.
playing.
Yeah. Mhm.
Worst
Yeah.
worst death I could imagine ever
To
seeing.
totally. I'm so sorry
Thank
that
you.
but I love the share that you want to see your mom first and that you can't wait for that reunion and the
And then
joy that
John
it's going to
Lennon.
bring to you. Yeah. He's number 2. I don't know why in my head I make these lists of things, and I literally think, like, if it doesn't happen in that right order, I'm gonna get pissed. Like, I visually picture myself pushing people out of the way to get to the ones that I wanna catch up with and see, and not all of them are humans, some of them are dogs. So
Interesting. Okay, yeah,
that
okay.
that's but for me, it's my grandmother. For me, it's my grandmother. I want her to be front and center, and knowing how humble she is, she'll probably just wait in the back, and I'll be like, "No, you get up here front, sister. I miss her dearly. I miss her dearly." It was such a pleasure having you on. I'm
Oh,
gonna
it's a pleasure
continue
being
to
on.
just watch you just take the world by storm.
Thank you.
You're inspiring, and all the ways to reach you will be in the show notes. Is there anything you want to share with listeners before we go?
I just think that if you're watching this and you're inspired, my job is done.
Yeah, amen,
Period.
sister.
Mic drop.
And if you don't, she doesn't give a fagana.
It is
There
not
you
my problem. It's not
No.
magician.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Lori.
Thank you. It was a pleasure.